What is up, SVSers? Welcome to another SVS Audiophile Happy Hour. I believe I was doing a count. This could be number 63 or 64. So super
Older
excited
than
to be
me.
back. I know. Is that crazy or what?
That's higher than you can count, Nick. This is impressive.
It is. You know, I don't like to count that high. But we are sans Larry tonight. Larry's on the road. But of course, I have joining me our Director of Technology, Ed Mullen. Ed, how are you this evening?
Doing grand. Thanks for having me.
And Gary, of course. Looks like you're not at home there, Gary. Where are you reporting to us from?
I am in a hotel. I'm in a humble 4 Points hotel in the San Francisco area, and I am voicing speakers. I won't say more than that.
Top secret business there out in San Francisco. Very exciting. Well, we're excited here. We don't have Larry, but we do have an awesome special guest who I've been looking forward to having on the broadcast for a while because he is about as passionate about physical media as anyone that I've ever spoken to. It's Jeff from the Films at Home YouTube channel and other social networks. So we will get to him here in a little bit. But as is the norm, we are going to have our normal giveaways here on the Audiophile Happy Hour, and there will be 3 fantastic giveaways. And this is usually where Larry would jump in and tell you the rules and how we're going to do it. But I'm going to fill those big shoes if I can. So first giveaway of the evening.
Well, let's remember how do you enter and how many.
That's right. In order to be eligible, we're already seeing the comments coming flying through. Thank you for those. 1 comment is all it takes to be eligible. We will.
If you say something nice about me, you actually get 2 entries.
Is that built in the rules and regs? I
guess
so.
I'm kidding. It's a joke. That's not
compliments
even
are worth 5. But any comment will do. You leave it. You're eligible. We'll choose the names of Vince, our colleagues working behind the scenes. Pick a name. I'll mention it live on the air with the product, and then we'll get your contact information and shipping info, and we'll get the prize out to you. So, you know, say nice things.
They are saying nice things about me. Now I feel like I need to deliver on this.
Well, you've been known
Except they don't mean it. You have to say nice, sincere things. These are not sincere comments.
You have pulled the prizes out before, so you know maybe if one really sticks out, you may you know, throw a plaque out there or something for somebody. But our giveaways for the evening, 3 of them are: first, our Prime Wireless Pro wireless speakers with a SoundPath HDMI cable, so you get that direct connect right to the TV. Have yourself a killer little stereo home theater system. Also have an SB1000 Pro subwoofer, and then a 3000 micro subwoofer with our SoundPath Subwoofer Cable. So 3 awesome giveaways tonight that we will get to throughout the evening. But as we do, normal tradition, I know you've been traveling quite a bit, Gary, but we've all been tuning into some things recently. And if you guys would allow me, I'll go first since I've got a couple recommendations for viewing and listening pleasures. The first that I've been into is the show called Platonic on Apple TV. This is a great sort of comedy with Seth Rogen, and I don't know, my wife and I really enjoyed it, and it's one of those shows that has a lot of dialogue, but then it's accentuated by like loud music to sort of drive the action forward, and I just laughed out loud a bunch of times, so I recommend Platonic. Last night I watched this movie called Heavy Metal. It's a new Blu-ray release, but it's from the 70s. It's animated. It's got music from Cheap Trick, Blue Oyster Cult, Grand Funk.
Dude, Heavy Metal is a freaking classic.
Black Sabbath
with that.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's rated R, and there's some, you know, some interesting animation in there, but it was a lot of fun, and it just has insane bass. Like there are scenes where like I thought the heavy metal and the rock would be more forward, but then they have this action where the bass is just like and it, you know, coming from all around you too, like the surrounds and my heights, they all felt like they were just dropping bass bombs. So Heavy Metal was great. And then 2 more, I promise, guys. I know I'm going a little deeper here. I've been into the horror genre since our last guest.
Well, we need you to do this. We don't have Larry to talk about.
I know, and I meant to
ask
him
10 movies he's seen in theaters since the last happy hour.
I meant to ask him, but I didn't get his recommendation. So there's always a chance he'll pop in here at some point. But I know he's in flight right now. My last 2, Cabinet of Curiosities. This is a new series by Guillermo del Toro, which is sort of like horror mixed with thrillers. And it's every episode has a different director. So it kind of has that like Black Mirror feel, but more of horror. Recommend it, just kind of getting into some of the scares as we get towards the season. And then the last one I have is a musical recommendation. It's a young singer named Angelina Jordan. And she's been doing covers on like YouTube and so on since she was like 7 years old. She's like 17 now, but she sounds almost exactly like Amy Winehouse. And when we were at the CES show, I had somebody recommend it. And I love Amy Winehouse, but she's starting to release some of the original music. So Angelina Jordan, you can find her on YouTube and all over the place. But that would be my singing and music recommendation. So there we go. I got all of that out of the way. And Ed, why don't we move on to you? What have you been into recently?
A little bit more mainstream than you. Extraction 2 on Netflix with Chris Hemsworth. I thought was great. Tons of action and gripping. Heart of Stone with Gal Gadot was a little cut below, but still pretty decent. Kind of like a Mission Impossible vibe there. It was enjoyable. And we are getting into Jack Ryan season 4 finally. And I've got episode 2 under my belt.
That's one I have to catch up on. It's been a while since I watched Jack Ryan, and I'm like 2 seasons behind. So you always bring that one up, and I keep adding it to my notes, but I got to get into that this week. So Gary, I know live music is always on the top of your agenda, but anything else you've been checking out recently?
So I did tell you guys, I told on the team call, I found this show that was produced in Israel. It's called Fauda, F as in Frank, A-U-D-A. And if you don't mind reading subtitles, because it's completely in, partially in Hebrew, partially in Arabic, it is absolutely thrilling. It's really, really well made. Basically, it's a top Netflix show around the world. And I just thought it was really, really good. So I'm going to recommend that without any reservation. And then I had an idea. I am going to name 3 movies. And I'm going to challenge you to pick which one did I love, which one did I hate, and which one have I not seen yet. Okay?
Okay, a little game
and I want to see the comments and see. 3 movies, which one did I love, which one did I hate, and which one have I not seen yet? All right. First one is Barbie. Second one is Oppenheimer. Third one is Cocaine Bear.
All right. Well, do you want to give a minute for people to react here? Because
I mean, it's not easy.
I'm gonna take
you either guess or you don't.
I'm gonna take a stab at this. And Fauda is on my on deck for me, Gary. It looks fantastic, right up my alley.
It's really
I'm
good.
thinking you hated Cocaine Bear. What were the 3? Not the 3 movies.
Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Cocaine Bear.
I think you liked Oppenheimer. I almost universally like Barbie. Kind of a polarizing movie. I guess some people loved it, some people hated it. So I'm going to go with the hate for that one.
Okay, good. Interesting guesses. Anyone else want to guess? I just already saw somebody who got it.
Yeah, I'm going with hated Barbie.
Okay, wait. Bob Feltz got it. Bob Feltz got all 3. I feel like giving this guy a prize.
Sure, he wouldn't object.
Bob
to that.
Phelps got
I'm looking
it.
for his
somebody else
comment.
Right away said, "I know it's shocking, but we turned on Cocaine Bear one night a week or 2 ago, and my whole family was home. My oldest son was back, and my younger son is still in the house, and we absolutely just laughed our heads off. It's hilarious. It is absolutely terribly violent, but in a hilarious way. I loved it. Have not yet seen Oppenheimer. Definitely want to see that. And I don't understand why so many people like Barbie. I really had a hard time with it. I thought it was boring. I couldn't develop any empathy for any of the characters, and finally turned it off halfway through. So I'm going to say I think Cocaine Bear is a hilarious date night movie. It is very gory, but in such a ridiculous way that I think it's okay. It's just funny. So
well,
that's
I think that was sort of the universal take on it. You know, it's not going to necessarily win every award for cinematic greatness, but it's a very watchable and enjoyable movie, and it doesn't, offend you in ways that I think some people thought it might. So
yeah, it's not really offensive. It's the violence is so ridiculous that it's just hard to even believe it's real.
Yeah.
So that's my thing.
All right. Well, good calls there. So I did want to, before we talk about some upcoming events, we had initially planned to do a happy hour 2 weeks ago while we were at CEDIA. And, Gary, maybe give a couple thoughts on just what CEDIA is, what our experience was there. And then we had a little bit of news that got released there that, I think we'd like to talk about as well. But I mean, for us, it was just an amazing show. So I'd love your thoughts on just, what our takeaways were.
Well, of our three big trade shows, I view CEDIA as kind of, I don't know, this, in my opinion, I've always viewed it as the smallest. So our three big trade shows are CES in Las Vegas, which is that's the largest trade show in the world. And we're right there in Central Hall on the main floor. That's really, really exciting. And our last CES was amazing. We had a full-on home theater demo in the main show floor. And then Munich High End, which is the audio show that's in Munich, Germany, is the largest audio show in the world. And that's always just crazy, over-the-top, wonderful show. And I would say both CES and Munich were big, big high points for us, right, Nick? I mean, I thought CES was just incredible, and Munich was even better. I really did. I was like, I'm ready to work. I had my game face on. I was not expecting a CES experience or a Munich experience at CEDIA, but in fact, that was the best trade show experience I've ever had, ever. And I've been doing this a long time. I'm an old dude. I've been going to CES since 1990. I was young going then, so just to say, but CEDIA was unbelievable. We had wall-to-wall meetings. We had wall-to-wall press scheduled, but we had even more people coming, colleagues, people we know, new dealers that wanted to be dealers. And it was just people from the industry just coming over to see what's going on with SVS. And I said to Nick, maybe it's a weird environment out there. It's a little bit, the inflation and all the weird stuff going on. But I felt like our brand has reached a new level of awareness. And it really showed it at CEDIA. And I was really, really proud. And I think the team was too. We all lost our voices on the first day and never got them back. It was really fun.
Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned it's hard, but this is a show specifically for people who are installing like the most extreme and high-end home theaters, home automation systems.
That's right.
Technology. These are integrators whose job it is to basically create just awesome technology experiences in people's homes. And to have that kind of reception was just I agree with you. It was easily one of the best trade shows I've ever been to. And the amount of videos and just the stuff where people were taking pictures of the big stack of subwoofers. It was just so much fun.
The stack of subwoofers, we had a dual stack of subwoofers that went up like 9 feet high.
Yeah.
And that was the place where everyone stopped and took a selfie. We had an SB16 Ultra a PB16 Ultra that was cut out so you could look inside of it and see the build quality and the over-the-top engineering, and people were taking pictures of that. I just felt really, really proud of the team, and I think everybody had a great time. I wish everybody in the SVS community could have been there. I really do. All of you guys making these positive comments, I wish you guys could have all been there.
The Wi-Fi was tough. Otherwise, we would have done a live stream from there, but it was really rough in there, with all the congestion.
A lot of tech people, and they all have their phones, and they're all trying to, do whatever they do. So yeah, the Wi-Fi was bad.
Yeah. And the only other thing I'll mention, one of my favorite moments, so there were several of these, but Larry kept playing the intro to Edge of Tomorrow over and over and over again, but he would do it at like slightly higher volumes each time. And every time he did that, there would be people like within 500 feet. They would look up, they'd sort of feel this rumble, and then they'd come over to our demo, which had this big sort of red door, and they'd immediately be like, what is that? And you go in the room, and we had these pull-up banners on all sides, and they'd be like flapping like this because of the compression of air that was happening within that space. And this was an open air, like no roof on the theater, but it was insane how we were moving, creating some SPLs in that area.
And I think your point, Nick, when you're saying this is the highest end part of the industry, these are the people that go into these super high end homes, and they put multi-$100,000 home theaters in there, and 2-channel systems even in those same price ranges, and they're coming and lined up to get to hear a home theater demo from SVS that's a fraction of those prices and is delivering a demo right on par or maybe even better than some of those six-figure home theater systems. It was really something for us to be very proud of.
No doubt. And the little bit of news we had there, this actually was a bigger deal to people than I think both of us expected, Gary. It's related to our Prime Wireless Pro powered speakers and Prime Wireless Pro sound base. And we recently achieved what's called Rune Tested. And if you haven't heard of Rune, ROON, it's it's this service, this platform that allows you to connect and stream and manage your music, bring it to different rooms in the house, all with like the highest fidelity possible. So it really is for people who are like, into their music. They have really big collections, and it allows you to just manage it and listen to it at the highest, like I said, quality possible, but do all sorts of crazy things in terms of getting information about the albums, but also finding concert tickets. It's like a very plugged in resource.
Lots of tweakability too, Nick.
Yeah, and I know I just sort of threw a lot out there, but
filters
it was
and EQ
kind of cool.
and everything like that. You can develop files for your headphones or your speakers, different presets and EQ files. It's really high tech.
Yeah. So for this audience, I mean, that's a big deal because they are dealing with some folks who have just vast music collections, and they need a good way to organize it and to sort of streamline their management and how they move it around their house. And so our products, Prime Wireless Pro, can now be used as what's called Rune endpoints and basically integrate into these systems that allow you to just use your music and listen to it a little bit more seamlessly.
And I should point out that it's every Prime Wireless Pro speaker or sound-based amp that's ever been purchased or ever been built is now Rune tested. In other words, it wasn't really anything about our products that needed to change. It's just a very rigorous certification process that they have, and we pass with flying colors.
Yeah. So very exciting, and again, the reception was just really great for us to kind of be a part of that, and some of the dealers that got excited about it. So our next broadcast is actually going to be October 5th, and that's going to be at a place called Worldwide Stereo in the Philadelphia area. But we actually have 3 upcoming events. One that has
actually
4.
I think more than, I mean,
we have 4.
Because I was just looking on my calendar as I was planning out some, as you guys know, some meetings, internal meetings, and we have Worldwide Stereo.
Yep, that's October 5th.
October 5th. Then we have 2 days in a row. We have Nebraska Furniture Mart, and then Listen Up in Nebraska Furniture Mart in Omaha, Nebraska, and then Listen Up in Denver. That's 2 days in a row, which makes me feel like we're almost like Bon Jovi without the fans.
Can we pick a different band? Yeah.
Pick a different. Okay, Nickelback.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Good recovery. How about Creed? No. Yeah. So we're super excited to get on the road. We love doing this this time of year, and Philadelphia area, Omaha, Denver, and then those 3 you can RSVP based on the link that I have posted on the screen here. And then November 2nd, we're going to be in Augusta, Georgia, at a Brand Smart, which we had done an event with them.
Brand new one, right? They're opening it up, and they wanted SVS to be there for their grand opening celebration, but the SVS evening is SVS only.
Absolutely. So that'll be Georgia, and you can't RSVP for that one yet, but you will be able to by early next week. So we'll obviously talk about that as we get closer. But yeah, check out the link if you're in the Philly area, Omaha, Denver, and within the next week.
Augusta is near Atlanta. People are asking, where is Augusta? It's near Atlanta. So
check us out, RSVP. We're going to have fun. If you've seen the live streams, we do demos. We have, Q&A. We talk about, just what we do on here a lot of times. It's just sort of riffing with some of our community. You get to meet like-minded audiophiles and home theater fans. So it's just a good time to come out and kind of hang. And they're all free. So there you go. No better price than that. All right. Well, I'm going to do a giveaway, and then I would like to bring out our special guest for the evening. Our first giveaway of the evening is the Prime Wireless Pro speaker system, which works with Rune now, and SoundPath HDMI cable. And the winner of that is Brendan Bengal. Brendan Bengal. Congratulations.
Yay, Brendan.
We will get your info and get that shipped out. So as I was mentioning off the jump, our special guest, his name is Jeff and he's the creator of Films at Home. It's a really popular YouTube channel where he does Blu-ray reviews, talks about physical media, gets into some of the techie side of Blu-rays and the medium that he loves so dearly. And he's really sort of just built a passionate following based on all this. So Jeff, how the heck are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Well, welcome. You're a fellow New Englander too, which I can appreciate.
Welcome, Jeff.
New Hampshire.
I am.
And I did want to find, I mean, so much of what you are passionate about revolves around physical media. And I want to know what sort of, what started that passion? What sort of ignited your flame for physical media?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing was accessibility and like ownership. At a certain point, it feels like everything's going digital, and, that's probably the reality of things. But I also found that I couldn't find certain movies that I wanted to watch, or I couldn't find them in the quality that I expected to be able to watch them in, or, I had to sign up for 10 different services, which I do anyway, to be honest. People don't think I stream stuff. I stream everything too. I watch all those shows, but I just love, having the stuff on my shelf. It's like a little bit of nostalgia. Goes back to being a kid, picking stuff off the shelf at the video store, and just like curating my own collection. That was all super important to me. I wanted something that was like a reflection of me and my interests.
And we can't tell by this sort of zoomed in view that we see now, but just how big is your Blu-ray collection?
Yeah, so it's actually a little bit smaller than it has been in the past. So I'm at about 2,500 now.
Oh, okay.
I probably peaked at around 3,500, but I had to do some curation. I sold some stuff. I gave some stuff away. I've upgraded a lot. So it got out of hand. 2,500, I think, is about that sweet spot. I never want to go over 3,000 again. So that's where I'm at.
You must have a couple like crown jewels, or like ones that you deem either most valuable in terms of money or just they're special to you. What are those?
Yeah, you can see one of them in the background here. That's signed. It's tough to see. I'll pull it off. But this is definitely a crown jewel. This is the Jordan Peele movie. And this is like the 4K steelbook, and I got it signed as like a promotional thing, which is so cool. He signed it in gold ink. I love that one. I've got Halloween 1978 signed by John Carpenter in my collection, so that's like a crown jewel. My Jaws original, like first ever home video vision LaserDisc. I love that.
LaserDisc. Oh,
yeah, first time that Jaws ever came out on home video. I've got like a sealed VHS of Texas Chainsaw Massacre that's never been opened that I just keep as a collectible item. I mean, when you have this many, there's a lot of crown jewels, but those ones always stand out to me.
So let's talk a little bit about this.
Do you use the LaserDisc player?
Oh, no, that's purely collectible. I don't even have... I go back to VHS. I have VHS. I have every format but LaserDisc.
I heard VHS is making a big comeback. They're selling for big bucks on eBay.
The collectors are going crazy over VHS right now. Yeah, they're like getting graded like sports cards. It's become a big market.
Oh, man. So my Little Mermaid still sealed in the box might be worth something.
If it's the right
$125,000, Nick.
If it's the right Little Mermaid with the bad Photoshop.
Yeah. Good to know. Well, I want to get into the audio a little bit because, I think there's always this debate of, how much better is Blu-ray sound than streaming, if at all. But also, your approach to critiquing the sound of a Blu-ray. Is there a formula or is there a criteria that you use to sort of judge, this one sounds phenomenal, but this one's average and this one's terrible? How do you go about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing you've got to do is sort of set your reference level for your home theater. I mean, I tell everybody when I do reviews, there's a million variables. Just I'm using a different receiver than somebody else. They've got different speakers than I do. They have a different 4K player than I do. So you got to just sort of set your own reference level and play off of that. That helps you determine, like, is this mix too low? Is this mix too high? You have to have that first. But then I kind of approach it like I pay attention to low frequency because that drives everything. It's not just, how hard does it boom, but it drives the rest of the sound, all of that low frequency. Dialogue, super important. But I try to just enjoy the movie too. And sometimes like I'm watching these things because I love movies. And so I want to put things in layman's terms too. Like some people can get very technical and I appreciate what they're doing. And I just don't have like the software for that. So I'm kind of just like, does it sound good or not? Is it making full use of my system? I know what sounds good, like a Blade Runner. So is this comparable to that? Or is it on some of my, worst lists? And so you just kind of set those reference points for yourself and make those judgment calls. But I do want to make sure I keep it in sort of layman's terms when I talk about audio, because I want to make it accessible. Like, to promote physical media, I want people to be able to understand what's happening when they invest in a home theater system.
Yeah, and you're an SVS owner,
Mhm.
and I'm just curious if pre-owning SVS, if sort of your take was a little bit different, or just how that
Oh,
upgrade impacted your ability to judge the sound and what
yeah.
that process was like.
Yeah, I had my dad had surround sound growing up. You know, he was always big into it, but we never had anything serious. So I thought that was incredible. I was watching movies on a TV, like with TV speakers, right? Or like a cheap sound bar. I had a little cheap home, like surround sound system. When I went to I mean, it's night and day when you go to SVS and you get a real system and you actually have like the power behind it that you need. And these movies are mixed for that too. So you're really kind of, I don't want to say you're doing yourself a disservice. There's lots of sound bars out there who can do things, and it's a budget thing. I get that, but like they're mixed for that cinematic 5, 7, 11 speaker experience. So to even be able to judge something without at least that sort of equivalent setup it's really tough because they're mixed for theatrical experiences, and that's just what you sort of have to have in your house to get the most out of it.
So do you actually think, when you're listening to a movie, like I think there should have been a better panning effect there, or the bass should have been deeper there, or are you just sort of appreciating what it is and then, using that sort of approach?
It does happen. That's kind of the fallback of doing this for long enough, is that I want to just enjoy the movie sometimes, but even when I'm not watching something for review, if I catch something that I was like, oh, that was kind of weak, like you do immediately notice it. So yeah, you feel that from time to time, because again, like I know what good is. So when it's not there and you expect it to be, it's disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you've talked about it too in some of your videos about how some of the different publishing companies or production agencies, like Warner Brothers, Disney, like they're different. They're mixes. You can actually tangibly hear differences. What what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, the more I learn about like how it all works, it's just kind of like part of it is it's coming from studio and that's sort of their direction. Like a Disney Atmos track, it's just that's how they deliver things. It is different. I don't know if it's different reference level. I don't know if they mix it differently. I don't know the technical side of it, but that's Disney versus that's Warner Brothers, and they clearly have like different standards or different ideas of what's right. Not to say any of them are wrong or right, but there clearly is a difference. And then depending on who gets involved, Disney has their system, but if Jim Cameron comes in and says, this is the way I want it, the way he prints money for them, they're probably going to do it the way he wants it. So even there's a variable there on like who you're working with. Is it a first time indie filmmaker or is it Steven Spielberg? Like there's going to be a difference in how it's mixed.
I also think some of them are mixing it for assuming that the person is less likely to have a home theater, and so they mix it for a TV. And this is one reason why I think someone like you, Jeff, is so good for people who appreciate great sound, because you're calling out what sounds great on a home theater. I think it definitely will drive some energy back all the way back to the people who are producing the sound and mixing it. To make it something that you go, hey, this is awesome. You should get it. So thank you. It's really good.
Appreciate it. Yeah, but you're 100% right. They are depending on the movie, or if it was something that came off of streaming and then comes to disc, like a streaming mix sometimes it's designed for the average TV speaker, average setup. It's not mixed in that cinematic way. So yeah, it can definitely vary.
So you touched on this earlier, just about the importance of bass in movies, and I just love to ask every guest we have, whether they're into music, movies, like to you, and sort of, it's almost like an emotional way that I describe it. Like, why is bass so important in the cinematic and creating that immersiveness?
Yeah, it is kind of it's like that. It's like the physical part of the sound, if that makes sense. Like I can't watch a movie without the bass, because if I'm watching something scary, I want that kind of that low pounding sound. It drives the anxiety, the dread. If I'm watching some World War II action movie, like I want to be in the mix here. Like I want to feel the sound, and without that on the lower end in a good subwoofer, I probably should get two at some point because I enjoy it so much. I have the one big one now, but it really is. It's like that that physical connection that you have with video, that's where I feel it with sound, is all on that low end. It really does, like, it can, I mean, you said it's like emotional, like it can like generate an emotional response the way it hits you sometimes.
Physical and emotional, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, we have two questions from the community that I'd like to throw your way too. The first one is a hardware question. Do you have a recommendation for the best Blu-ray player or brand, or just how do you, what are you using?
Yeah, for most people, it's going to be Panasonic's UB420 or 820, depends on your budget. I have a Reavon player, which is like, it's like $2,000. It's higher end. I mean, I think it's also really good if you're into audio, because it has every audio option, every audio SACD and everything out there. Like, it works really well with. It's very compatible. So that's a good one if you have like super high end music and movies. But there's also a Magnetar player that's really good, but it's pretty much Panasonic at this point. They've kind of set the standard. There are other players out there, but they tend to have more issues, especially with like 4K discs, that they'll skip or they don't read certain discs. It's actually a pretty common and annoying issue with this format, is that the hardware hasn't really caught up to the discs and what they're delivering.
Yeah. So this one's more of a setup related question, and maybe there's some backstory here, but Ed asks, not Ed, our Ed, but Ed from our community asks, what are your reasons and recommendations for backlighting the screen with LEDs for home theater setups? Is that just like visual appeal, or is there, something deeper?
I've never done it with like the interconnected, like I've had backlighting like that actually goes scene by scene, like, oh, this scene's very red, so you're gonna get a red backlight. I've never tried it. I mean, I think it looks cool, but I also, when I've even just done basic backlighting, found it to be a little distracting. So I think the whole color changing thing, I mean, it's an aesthetic if you like that. I don't really have any recommendations though, because I've stayed away. A little backlight behind the TV though isn't bad, because it does kind of just give some depth at times, but they have some crazy stuff.
It can definitely, if you're just doing sort of, passive watching, or you have music playing on your big system, then, provide sort of that mood effect. So yeah, I do like that. Well, you mentioned scary movies, and I know Halloween's approaching, and you've been sort of getting into a little bit more of that type of content on your channel. I want to save your thoughts on The Exorcist, because I teased that one. But what are some of your favorite scary movie soundtracks, some of the good audio experiences that people can have to really, scare their wits?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if this movie is like super scary, but if you want that fall vibe and like that atmosphere, it just came out and I just watched it the other day. But Sleepy Hollow, the new 4K disc, was just released, and it has upgraded audio where it only had Dolby Digital before. They've actually gone HD audio on this one, and that atmosphere was really cool. Any of the newer Halloween 1978, if you get the newest version that has an Atmos mix, like, very effective. Love that. I love The Shining. That one's always incredible. That'll get you right in the mood. And then one that I just got to was It Follows, which I think has just a super spooky soundtrack and vibe. And I love the movie too, but that sort of like, it's almost like a synth kind of 80s thing going on with it. That's really, really effective.
And The Exorcist, you just did, there's a remaster that just came out. And I mean, I don't know if people knew this, but when this movie first came out, like, people would walk out of the theaters, people were vomiting in the theaters. It caused serious reactions for people. So I don't know how much more you can do to create that kind of effect, but I am curious, like, what was improved, since I'm assuming you saw the original, from that version, and sort of what was your takeaway from this new remaster?
Yeah, so I mean, the new remaster, I can't imagine that they get much better than this. I mean, this is a lot of these movies when they come to 4K, it's kind of the peak just for eye test. But the audio on this was also revelation. Like, it was a brand new track that was super effective. Like, I've seen the movie multiple times on TV and different services. I had the Blu-ray disc, but this new 4K one with the new Atmos track it kind of blew me away, even more so than the picture, which surprised me. But overall, like, that AV experience, and There's some controversy on it because William Friedkin made some changes, and he did a little revisionist coloring and stuff, but it's nowhere near as bad as like George Lucas. So I kind of let it slide. If the guy wanted to change something in his movie, who am I to say no? So there was some controversy over that, but I thought it looked fantastic and maybe even sounded better. So if you haven't heard that in the highest format in this Atmos, like,
is that the scariest sounding movie you've ever seen at this point, or is something beyond that?
I mean, it's up there. Yeah, you turn, and again, these things are always like, you got to be in the right mindset. Like,
sure,
turn your lights off, put a candle on or something. You know what I mean? I had a rainy New England night. That all helped. The atmosphere. But yeah, it's up there. That soundtrack too is just so spooky in its own right that just amplified everything.
That soundtrack, they cut like 3 minutes from it and put it out as a single at the time of the movie, and it was a hit. It was like number 2 or number 1.
It's awesome,
which is amazing. Just the soundtrack. Yeah. It's funny that you bring up The Exorcist because I also got that, and my kids were home. They're not kids anymore. They're in their 20s. One with his girlfriend, and I played The Exorcist for them, and they're like, "This is so stupid. It's so boring." And I'm like, "Really?" It was scaring me again. But it's just interesting. It's maybe a generational thing. I don't know, or maybe because I liked it, they were pushing back. I'm not sure. But I thought it was. I agree with you. I thought it was just great.
Yeah.
Well, I think it retains its scare factor value, and it's not the same sort of technical execution with all the animated effects they can do now, but for what they were working with at the time, it was pretty.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I mean, 50 years this year. I mean, it doesn't look that old.
Yeah. Jeff, when he brought up Sleepy Hollow, I was thinking of Johnny Depp, and then From Hell sprang to mind. I thought that was a pretty decent movie, sort of a Jack the Ripper based movie. I thought the soundtrack was pretty engaging in that movie as well. I haven't seen it on 4K with the latest mix, but that had sort of that moody, nuanced bass and surround effects and some jump out gotcha moments. So I recommend that if people are horror buff fans.
Yeah, getting some good horror movie recommendations here too. So keep them coming in the comments. We're getting to that time, so we'd love to see more of those.
I know, Jeff. I did want to acknowledge, Jeff. The way you describe movies is really good. It's like you kind of craft. You use the right words to sort of craft. Hey, this is what you're going to experience. I was like, really. A couple of them I haven't seen. A couple of them I have seen, and I'm like, oh, he's nailing it. This is exactly right. And especially what you said about The Exorcist. I can just see you on a cold, rainy New England night watching this thing.
It's all about the vibes. It really is. That's the mindset you go into something with too. Will change your experience.
We might have to go through these comments and put a playlist together. Vince, I hope you're listening, of the best scary movie soundtracks here, because timing is right. So keep them coming. I think there's a lot of great suggestions here. So I know we normally key in on the audio side of things, but you've also gone deep trying to educate people about the difference between 1080p, 4K, Ultra HD, Blu-rays. Maybe get a little bit into what people would notice and what you've noticed in terms of those 3 different formats. Yeah.
So when it comes to, I'll say this: 1080p Blu-ray is still a great format, and to be honest, 95% of the stuff on that format will probably never get that premium treatment. It's a very expensive process. Like 4K is going to be very picky and choosy on what gets released. So usually already remastered stuff will. So I like the 1080p format. The biggest difference you'll notice, I think, when you go from 1080p, and it's funny because when they market 4K, it's all about 4 times the resolution, 4 times sharper, which, but that's not as noticeable to the average person as the color upgrade. And when you get into HDR and you have a really good, if you get a good OLED TV or one of these mini LEDs or QLED TVs that can really produce some incredible colors, that has always been the biggest upgrade for me. It's just rewatching something in that new color space. And all it is really is it's just a different way to color grade the movie, but it's a little bit more cinematic. It actually gives you a larger color space to work with. Some directors don't like it, some really embrace it. It's kind of one of those controversial things, but most of the movies, that's where I find the biggest difference, unless it had been, years since it was remastered.
Yeah.
That's going to be the selling point, which I think people forget when they, if you look at a 4K and a 1080p and they're both playing, whatever, The Office, and it's just some regular old TV show, you're not going to see the difference. And I get that. It's all about the content you put on it, and then you've got to have that.
But sound quality wise, you're not noticing much of a difference between those three formats.
Well, I mean, you can put an Atmos track on Blu-ray. So that's the thing, is it can be a lot of newer Blu-rays that have 4Ks will have Atmos on both. So that's actually kind of a nice thing. There is a budget option where you still get great audio if you just want to buy the Blu-ray disc. When it comes to like the differences between Atmos and like a 5.1, yeah, like if you have your system set up for a Dolby Atmos experience and it's truly set up for that, like in the right way, you're gonna notice the difference. There is just something extra about that. There's better the surround sound experience. It's not like it's gimmicky with 5 channels, but they only have 5 channels, and they're kind of like, it's either left, right, front, center. Like that's it. Atmos like really gives you this bubble of sound, which is really cool because you almost don't know where it's coming from at times, which is more exciting.
Jeff, do you notice, do you make changes to your video display settings for HDR, HDR10, Dolby Vision versus earlier generations? I do.
Yeah.
I have found that HDR10 Dolby Vision tracks tend to require on my Sony 4K projector a higher brightness and a higher contrast setting to really bring out the best in it. If I leave them at my standard 4K settings, it looks sort of dim to me.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience as well? And what changes do you make?
Yeah, no, I do the same thing. I've got an LG OLED TV and a big Sony in my living room, and both of them have different profiles for the HDMI that I've got my player hooked up to versus if I'm just watching football or something. That's a different setting. You definitely have to make adjustments, and they have to be specific to HDR and movies too, because there is a difference between like YouTube HDR content and what a movie's going to give you on a disc or even on a streaming service. So yeah, I usually make those same tweaks. It's usually a brightness and contrast thing, because honestly the HDR is almost still ahead of the displays in some cases. A lot of displays struggle to get to that top level, so you have to make those adjustments.
Right.
All right, couple more questions before we let you jump and we go into our lightning round Q&A. But I know this is going to be difficult, but do you have a favorite audio experience from all the Blu-rays that you've reviewed and watched, and you can narrow it to a top 2 or so, but is there one that truly stands out in your mind?
Well, the one that always stands out to me, and it's because I had seen this movie on just about every format. I had seen it in a movie theater on the big screen. I'd watched it a million times, but when I watched Jaws on 4K for the first time, it's a different level. That Atmos track, the remastering they did video-wise, great, but that audio, it's just a different experience. I mean, the soundtrack and John Williams and all his work has never sounded so good. The effects have never been as effective. I mean, that whole like, you don't see the shark, so a lot of it's sound that's driving the scare. Like that is so much more effective with that track. So that's always at the top of my list. It's also my favorite movie of all time, so that's why I've seen it a million times. But when I watched that, it was like watching it for the first time. Yeah. And then you guys had mentioned Edge of Tomorrow, which is up there. Like that will give. I almost think it's too much for my system at home. Like I need more to get that full experience, because that thing pounds your system. I mean, I can imagine you drawing an entire trade show over to the booth using that, because it's incredible. And then probably the other one,
and we annoy all the exhibitors anywhere near us too.
I love it.
It's competition. I wouldn't say it's exclusive to us.
But 2001: A Space Odyssey too. I mean, if you want to buy one 4K disc and you enjoy classic movies, like that should be probably the first one you buy. That's overall just, it's still probably the best experience I've had in my home theater. It's just incredible.
How about Blade Runner? To me, that was a big transformation from the original soundtrack to the latest HDR 4K Atmos soundtrack, and I think 2049 has an
Both
awesome Atmos mix.
Yeah, no, if I didn't want to, I think I had mentioned them earlier, and I was like, do I say it again? I don't want to be repetitive, but both of those are both awesome. Yeah, Blade Runner's a top 5. 2049's right up there too.
Yeah, and just back to your point about Jaws. I mean, I think when you have a soundtrack by someone like John Williams, like the symphony and all those instruments that are contributing to creating that soundscape just come to life so much more when you have a great surround sound system and a good front stage and subwoofers that can reproduce that bass. Like, it just makes everything more emotional, physical, all those things we were talking about before.
Oh yeah. You
all
haven't
right,
heard
one
Jaws
more
till you heard
question.
it.
Yeah, I am curious. You've obviously done a ton of reviews. You've had, probably millions of comments you've had to sift through. Is there one question or some weird anecdote that one of your subscribers has asked you that is worth sharing tonight? What's the weirdest?
One of my favorites is always, and I'll get actually these every so often, an Instagram DM or a YouTube comment, when somebody gives you about 3 things about a movie and then tries to they'd be like, so there was a monster, he was definitely purple, and there was a guy dancing on a stage, and then I definitely remember some like classical music in the credits. Can you tell me what that movie is? And I'm like, I'm not like the Einstein like machine for movies. Like that's sometimes I swear they don't exist. They're people's dreams and memories and stuff, but those always crack me up because it's the most obscure stuff that they remember. But it is funny because sometimes in the comments, some crazy person will be like, I remember that too. It was this. And I'm like, I've never heard of this movie. You were the 2 people who watched that on VHS in 1985. Like, nobody's
on the
ever heard
way,
of this.
not so much.
Yeah, those crack me up.
Well, anything you want to tease or promote coming down? What's the next video that's dropping?
I mentioned Sleepy Hollow on 4K. I filmed the review. It's edited. It's sitting in the queue, so that's going to drop this week. It hasn't posted yet. I've got a fun video celebrating Saw and the Saw franchise coming up with Saw 10. I did a little ranking of all the Saw movies because I just rewatched them in order again. And then I've got speaking of The Exorcist, next month I have a home video history little mini documentary that I do that kind of covers every home video release of different films. My recent one was Texas Chainsaw, but in October I'm working on The Exorcist. Since that just came out on 4K, I now have kind of a full view of the home video experience, so that should be a fun one.
Jeff, clearly keep all the versions?
I will keep all the versions of movies I really like. I don't usually. I have every version of Halloween. I have every version of Jaws, Jurassic Park. Like, my key nostalgic favorites, I'll keep.
Well, you're clearly getting into the holiday season here, and
I love it.
I could tell
My
you're the dark soul, apparently, because that's a lot of horror to put yourself through. But we appreciate you being here, Jeff. Wealth of information, good technical knowledge. Check him out at Films at Home on YouTube. He's also on Instagram, does short form stuff as well. Just a phenomenal resource if you're into physical media and you're into Blu-ray. So, Jeff, thanks. Hopefully, we'll be able to have you on down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks,
thank you guys for having me. It was fun.
You were great. Really appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
Well,
That's good.
I got a lot of horror recommendations. I'm going to be doing a lot of movie watching by myself, apparently, because nobody else in my house will join me. But that's all right. That's what scary movie nights are for.
I don't think those were particularly date movies. Most of them. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but
not for everyone. All right. Well, you guys ready to jump? Oh no, we got to do a giveaway because we're one behind, and then we'll jump right into the Q&A. So our next giveaway is our SB1000 Pro subwoofer. Winner of that is Sheldon Hall. Sheldon Hall, congratulations.
Yay, Sheldon. Enjoy it.
Bass to your house. So we got a comment here, a question from Chili Horizons. And he wants to know what happens to a speaker if you play it too loud. How do you know if you're approaching that point? And what is sort of the after effect if you have played it too loud?
Well, I can field that one. Usually it's amplifier related. Really, the amp starts to clip and compress, so the speaker starts to sound harsh and strident and gritty, lacking dynamics. It just gets very strident and difficult to listen to. If you overdrive the speaker too hard, you can either blow one of the drivers, usually a tweeter, or the crossover network can actually be damaged as well. So it's always a good idea to use adequate amount of power and not use an underpowered amplifier that you drive into clipping, because that will
let's
damage speakers
explain
more.
why. Let's explain why, because this is actually a great question and people don't get it. How, I always get this question: is this too much power for the speakers? And you're like, well, actually, it's the other way around.
Right.
But why? It sounds like we're smoking something when we say that. Here's the reason why. You have to imagine in your head a sound wave. A sound wave is this curvy thing. It goes up like this and then goes back down. The peak of it is called the amplitude. And so if the amplifier can't go all the way to the top, it doesn't give you a round curve. Instead, it squares off the curve and essentially shakes the driver violently with that squared off curve. And that violent shaking, it hurts your ears. You can hear it as distortion, but it also obviously is violently shaking the driver. Now, what we do is build speakers and drivers and crossovers that go far beyond in terms of their ability to tolerate that. They go far beyond what you would ever want to listen to, or distortion that you could ever deal with without, wanting to run screaming out of the room. So it doesn't really happen to our speakers very often. In fact, it's super rare because of the level of validation that we do. We'll run our speakers at full power for 2 days straight. We'll blast them with massive amounts of power way beyond their rating, and then make sure that they're still measuring perfectly. Most speaker brands don't do it, but on the other hand, you don't want to abuse your speaker. And Ed's exactly right. Don't use an underpowered amplifier. And if you hear something that hurts your ears, you can be sure your amplifier is having a problem with that content.
So this is actually a relevant follow-up. Eric asks, what is considered reference volume, and what is meant by that? And is there like a decibel level that's assigned to that term reference volume?
It's kind of a loaded question. In the movie theaters, according to Dolby reference level, is the volume at which the mix was mastered at by the mixing engineers and the director. It's the volume it was intended to be heard. The peak dB in the speaker channels is 105. The peak dB in the LFE channel is 115. If you want an approximate master volume setting on your home receiver that's similar to reference level in the theater with a Dolby Digital Atmos mix, somewhere around -7-ish is similar to reference level in a movie theater. And there's dial norm and differences in home theater mixing versus consumer high-end theater mixing. So reference level means different things to different people. And when you're listening at home, I always say that's what the master volume is for. Set the master volume where you like it, and don't worry too much about whether you're listening at quote unquote reference level, because many people don't really even listen that loud.
Yeah. So it really has nothing to do with like the dB level on your AV receiver and how loud you're turning it up. It's like once you hit 74, it's not like this is reference volume. It has a lot of sort of variables that, go into
it. Someone just said on a calibrated receiver, it would be 0 dB. And that's true. And it's obscenely loud in a home theater environment. Again, if you're listening at -7-ish or -8, that's really loud. And that's similar to what you would experience in a high-end commercial cinema. Many people will listen at -10 or even -15, and that's still comfortably loud. And I'd say the vast majority of listeners sort of fall into that range. So below reference level, but still comfortably loud.
All right. We have an interesting question from Daniel, who's having a conversation with his friend who is saying that, he has 2 large full range tower speakers, and he's adamant that adding subwoofers aren't going to do anything to improve his soundstage or really improve the sound quality. What can we tell Daniel to tell his friend that he's just abjectly wrong? Or is he? If you have just phenomenally balanced full range tower speakers, is there ever a scenario where you would not benefit from a subwoofer?
Well, I understand there's a school of thought, and I get this school of thought, which is, a subwoofer could do more harm than good with a really high performance speaker. I get that, and SVS our mission is to create subwoofers that don't do that. But anyone who thinks they have a tower speaker that wouldn't benefit from the bass extension of a subwoofer, they're out of their mind. They're going to know immediately that the guy is going to know in 1 minute with his speakers that this was a complete. He's just added 1 or even 2 octaves to the bass extension. It's not subtle. It'll be so obvious to him. He'll be like, I can't believe what I was saying what I said. He's not going to argue about it. So my suggestion to this person to tell his friend, just try it for what. Get somebody who has a satisfaction guarantee. Obviously, self-servingly, SVS has a 45-day satisfaction guarantee, but other retailers do as well. Put it in your system, and you're gonna immediately, within a minute, know that you just added massively to the experience. The caveat is, and I feel, and you could make the case this is a little bit self-serving, make sure that the subwoofer does the 5 things we always talk about well. Make sure it has low frequency extension below the level of audibility. Make sure it does it as loud as the listener wants to do it. Make sure it has accurate frequency response. It only reproduces the frequencies that are supposed to be there in the proportion that's supposed to be there. Make sure that it has speed in the transient response so that it's quick and not boomy and not floppy. And then make sure it seamlessly blends with those speakers. If it does all those 5 things, then it's going to be a massive enhancement to that person's listening experience. Ed, would you change anything I just said?
No, not at all. I would add that not running the speakers on full range will free up amplifier power for the mids and highs. It will stress the speakers less, so they'll sound better and more dynamic. And Gary's right. I mean, you're looking at another octave of extension. Even really good towers are going to be solid to maybe the mid 30s in room, and that's probably being charitable. A lot of them are more in the mid 40s. So you're looking at another octave to 1.5 octaves of extension that will open up a whole new world of bass that tower is simply unable to play, but a subwoofer can.
And I do want to clarify, that's true of home theater, obviously, but it's also true of 2-channel. And I'm seeing, the Stereophile recommended components just came out, and a bunch of SVS subwoofers are on there. We have 2 subwoofers in Class A, right up against ones that are $12,000, and ours are obviously way less expensive than that. But the fact that Stereophile, a magazine that in their name is 99% about stereo and the 2-channel experience, is telling you really, even with these super high performance speakers that they have, they're recommending a high performance, musical, accurate subwoofer. Tells you a lot of what you need to know making this decision.
So follow up to that first question. If you do have full range towers that are, do have decent amount of bass, does that change where you should put the subwoofer if you do add a subwoofer, like versus satellites? Or is it going to be the best placement?
I think that could change, but more likely it's going to change where you cross the subwoofer over, and possibly the slope. And for us, we obviously give you an app where you can easily do that, and we even have a thing on our website where we tell you what we recommend for your speakers. We have 5,000 or 6,000 different speaker models on our website telling you the exact settings you should have. Certainly a tower speaker, if it's going to 30 hertz, you're not going to have the subwoofer delivering 100 hertz bass note. You don't want to do that. That's just going to make the sound muddy. Ed, you probably are even going to give a better answer than I just did.
Well, you want to take advantage of the fact that the speaker can deliver solid bass and reasonably deep bass. So your crossover is just going to be set deeper than it would be if it was a bookshelf or a satellite. So a good tower might end up with a crossover as deep as 40 hertz in the AV processor if it's a home theater system. If it's a 2-channel system, as Gary said, the low pass filter might be set 40, 50 hertz. for a good blend with that speaker, and not at a much higher frequency.
And placement doesn't really matter. So,
well, placement matters, but it's not really. I wouldn't say it's related to the size of the speaker. It's more
Right.
related to the room and other things. Placement always matters. You make no mistake.
Well, we're going to get to our last giveaway. I have two more that I can answer in two words. One asks, can the SoundPath subwoofer isolation system be used with speakers and other components? Absolutely. You can use it with speakers, turntables. Our director of operations.
We did at CEDIA, didn't we?
We did. Our director of operations used it on his dryer because his dryer was moving too much. So not the necessary recommended use, but whatever you need to stop vibrating, you can put them on there, and that'll help. And then Fred asked, do you EQ subs before or after Odyssey? I think typically we recommend after. You run your room correction, then you make your fine-tuning adjustments. So two quick hitter answers there.
Good. Look at Nick, all this technical
I'm trying to cram a couple more in here, short form. But our next broadcast is going to be, and I will get to the giveaway, Thursday, October 5th. We will be live on site in the Philadelphia area, Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania, at Worldwide Stereo, one of the finest AV showrooms in the country, doing one of our Speakers and Subwoofers Unleashed events. So
we're doing all of the 4 giveaways for the SVS community. So
yep, we'll be doing our giveaways in the live stream. We'll be doing giveaways at the event as well. So whether you come in person or whether you tune in virtually, you will be eligible to win free SVS gear. So,
but come see us in Philly.
Yeah,
I'll be there. Nick will be there. Larry will be there.
Yep, and we'll be all dressed in dimes. No, not usually. But we are going to do our final giveaway, 3000 micro subwoofer with the SoundPath Subwoofer Cable. The winner of that is Kerry McClure. Kerry McClure, congrats.
All right, Kerry.
Fantastic new micro subwoofer. So we look forward to connecting with everyone in 2 weeks when we are in Pennsylvania. Check out that events link that I shared earlier to RSVP. And we hope to see you some there. And if not, we'll see you virtually. Happy listening, everyone.
Bye everybody.